Slasher. Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are on Monday night, Slasher Movie Club, ready to rock as we head back into Dario Argento land. Coriander's with me,
Yeah.
and
Hey.
we have covered quite a few of Dario Argento movies
We have.
throughout the channel, but especially in this particular series. And what an interesting journey that it's been. And now we're going to be talking about Opera from
Mhm.
1987, which, real quick, just for full transparency, I've had a few people that I've heard from interested in this film, but also saying that in their opinion, this was one of his last great films, which
Hmm.
I thought was interesting to hear. Now we have covered a couple of his films that he did after this, like Trauma and Sleepless. So this is going to be
Hmm.
interesting, is what I'm getting at, Coriander, just to see
Yeah.
what people and what you also think about this movie. Real quick, just to say hello to everyone in the chat that's with us tonight for this interesting episode. Paula,
Mhm.
what's going on? Good to see you.
Hello.
Uh, Brandon's in the chat. What's up, Brandon? Good to see you, man.
Hello. Nice.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Saying I shared out the video. Well, thank you so much. We
Very
appreciate that,
cool.
man. Seriously,
Mhm.
thank you. Philip, what's going on? Good to see you in the chat.
Hello.
And of course, we have Dan from the
Dan.
Inner Circle.
Yeah.
Dan did his homework. He saw the movie or watched the movie.
All
He was
right.
ready to rock. And
Nice.
I'm gonna be interested to hear what you think of this one too, Dan. Film Kid, what's going on? Good to see
Hey.
you. Welcome to the chat. All right. And Hollywood Guy is in the chat as well. Good to see you.
Hello.
Very, very cool. Okay, guys, let's let's get down to brass tacks here, Coriander. So we're talking about
Yeah.
Opera from 1987. Now, can
Mhm.
you just let the folks know, we talked a little bit about it, but let the folks know your connection with this film, because you had seen it before, years and years ago.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, at one point in my life, I had quite a few of, Dario Argento's movies, and this was one of them. Yeah, it's yeah. I don't know how much you want me to much
Well,
want me to.
yeah, but I mean, just your overall thought of it back then, not anything specific, but I know you were a big fan of his. This being a movie that came after like Tenebrae and Phenomena and so
Mhm.
forth. What were your thoughts of it back then, or were you just in that mode of just watching so many of his films one after another?
Um, you know, it I enjoy this movie. Okay. Uh I don't know, you know, what more you want me to say.
Okay, well, that's all right. Well, it's an interesting film, no
It is.
doubt. And when it begins,
It is.
it's basically, and I think Dario made a specific choice with this film,
Yeah.
obviously being called opera,
Mhm.
also known as Terror at the Opera. So this film really situates itself around an opera and performance
Yeah.
and so forth. And you've got this character who, at the center of it, Betty, she is dealing with trying to become a star. She's dealing
Mhm.
with a person, a stalker. She's dealing with death
Yep.
all around her, and so forth. And it's just really, really interesting because she's involved in this series of murders, and they're being committed inside the opera house by a masked
Yeah.
assailant. But the masked assailant always, assaults her, ties her up, and makes her
Mm.
watch the murder that's being committed, so it's a
Yes.
lot of interesting stuff going on
The needle
with this
tape.
film.
Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a
And
great, it's a good scene, every time he has her eyes like that, yeah, it's creative. I like it.
yeah, yeah. Brandon saying, "Watch the film today for
Ooh,
my first time." Okay, very
very
cool.
cool.
Uh,
Yeah.
Mag is in the chat. What's going on? Saying, "Hey, sup, guys? What's going on? Good to see you." And let's see. Philip saying, "I've seen opera, but I've seen the eyes with the needles." Okay, all right. Um, Dan saying, "In the very least, you have to say parts of this are amazing to look at." Very good
Yeah,
point.
it
Very good
just
point.
yeah, I mean, this is a roller coaster, it takes you one thing that really it's like, did any of those ravens I know we're not there yet, but
Yeah,
did they get hurt in this movie?
I
Do you
don't,
know?
I don't know.
Because
I
I was
would,
like,
I would assume
I
not.
yeah, I don't I hope not.
Yeah,
I don't know though,
yeah,
but that scene I did not really care for.
yeah. Well,
But
in the beginning of the film, you have the situation where the lead star
um,
of this opera was hurt, and
mhm,
the main character that we're following, Betty, played by Christina Marslet,
mhm,
she is basically called in. She's like the understudy, and called in to take over for the performances, and that's pretty much what starts this whole thing, in motion. And the Ravens
yep,
are part of the performance itself, which was interesting, and it was some
it
like like like
is.
like you just said, and Dan said as well in the chat. It's a very beautiful um, aspect to the film. It's very well done.
Mhm,
The cinematography. You see things from the point of
mhm,
view of the Ravens, who are supposed to fly around the stage and so forth. But we do have some interesting scenes that come up soon that we'll be talking about as well. But Betty is basically um, just performing, doing a good job, and
yeah,
there are these flashbacks that you see that are very dreamlike and odd
mhm,
and weird. We see this lady that's being attacked, and we see this other lady that is watching, and you don't get the whole story in the beginning of the film, but it's just,
mhm,
I guess what I'm getting at is a very dreamy type of situation. And during Betty's first performance, we see the first on-screen kill with
mhm,
this guy who's up in the seats with binoculars and the trademark black gloves, who's watching Betty perform. And then you have this guy that comes in and says, "You're not supposed to be here. What are you doing?" Now, Coriander,
yeah,
let's
mm,
start with this. This is the first on-screen kill. What
yep,
did you think of this scene, how it played out, and the blood and gore and stuff?
yeah. I mean, this was a pretty tame kill. This one
Yeah.
didn't have much to it. He's just slamming him over and over on the hook that's hanging out of the wall.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, it's a great scene, and you obviously can see that, yeah, man, she's got a terrifying stalker on her hands, because,
Right.
he knocks the light down and, yeah, freaking out over who knows what, you know what I mean? Which just goes to show he's obviously, yeah,
Yeah.
anyway, a psycho dude. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And,
Yeah.
her performance, goes well other than the commotion, because when
Yep.
the killer, kills one of these stagehands or extras or what have you, they knock over one of the lights and it goes down and
Mhm.
hits the floor. So the audience is jolted, but they don't know what's going on yet. So this is just it's just an interesting
It's a
setup,
good
you know?
opening. Yeah,
It's a
I
pretty
like
good
it.
opening. It's a pretty good
Yeah.
opening. And, Betty has this relationship with the director. And the one thing about this film as well is that there's multiple red herrings. There's multiple red
Mhm.
herrings in this film, and it's just interesting because right from the beginning, I was thinking this guy is really, really, he's really odd. You know what I'm saying? But
Hmm.
but they don't play their hand too far. You know what I mean? Now
Mhm.
she is getting all of this attention. She's being labeled as a star for her initial performance, but she's
Mhm.
having these nightmares as well. Nightmares, flashbacks, it's all dreamy, it's all weird, right? And we see the implements, the weaponry of the masked assailant, very Dario. This is like, you know, par for the course for these types of films when you talk about Italian horror, right?
Mhm.
Now, when we get to the scene, and this is where we're going to start going on this roller coaster. She's
Yeah.
with her boyfriend Stefano, right?
Mhm.
And they're
Well,
having
is
what?
it really a boyfriend?
Well,
It's
whatever
more
whatever we
just
want
like
to
a
call it.
hookup. Yeah.
Well, whatever we want to call it. But the point, he really likes her, and she does like
Yeah.
him. But whatever we want to call it, they're together, and
Mhm.
they're kind of just doing their thing. And all of a sudden, when he leaves the room, the assailant is in the apartment. However that
Yeah.
happened, I don't know. But this is the first time in the film that we get one of these scenes that you were alluding to, Coriander,
Mhm.
because he ties her hands, has her head tied against the post so she can't move her head,
Mhm.
and then he puts these they're like these little
Needles.
pins, these
Yeah.
needles that are on tape to her eyes so that she can't blink. Now,
Mhm.
I gotta admit, I had never seen anything specifically like this. And again, this film is from 1987. First of all,
Yeah.
what did you think of that as a visual, but also in the
That's
context of
great.
the film and how this scene played out?
It's great because it's making it so she has to watch everything that he does.
Mhm.
But her vision, it's not clear either, so she can't plus he's all, like, covered up, so there's really not much to see, but you can hear,
Right.
the screams of whoever's getting killed, and
Right.
I love how they always went from, like, opera, then to the metal music every time, like, a death
Mhm.
was happening, and I
Yeah.
thought that was great. I really enjoyed the music in this one, so
Yeah, when
yeah.
stuff was going down, as
Yeah.
far as the action, so to speak, or the intense stuff, so to speak, they had the rock metal music,
Mhm.
and of course, other than that, it was kinda operatic,
Yeah.
very,
It was a
yeah,
good mix, yeah.
yeah. But of course, Stefano, he comes back into the room, and the door had been shut, and he,
Yeah.
gets into the room, and he sees her tied up. Now, look, this is where the rubber meets the road a little bit, Coriander, because now this was the first time that I recall seeing it. I might have seen it when I was a kid. I don't
Yeah.
remember, but let's just call this my first time watching. He walks in, and of course
Mhm.
he gets stabbed. Now this was a pretty
Yeah,
good kill because he
this
gets
was.
he gets stabbed with that blade, and it goes up through his neck, and you can see the blade in his mouth. I'm not going to show that scene because we know
Yes.
we know how YouTube is, but um, it was a pretty good kill. It was a pretty
Yeah,
good kill. Of
and then
course,
he's getting
Stefano was
stabbed in his hands, like, multiple times. It's like,
yeah,
wow, yeah, it was great.
yeah. So he's done. There's
He
no coming
was.
back from that. But here's my
No.
problem. Here's my problem, though. And Brandon, you're right about that. This is like early John Kramer stuff going on here. Here's my problem, though. Okay, so Betty runs out because here's the thing: Stefano gets killed, and then the killer, he's talking to her the whole time. You are the one, and this and that and all that. He cuts her binds so she can free herself. He just
Mhm.
wanted her to watch this kill, right?
Yeah.
So she's freed, and she's running outside in the rain. She's just running, and I don't know, man. I'm just kind of like, man, we need to come on, man. We need to call the cops. We need to do something. And granted, she's running and there's obviously no one right there that can help her until, the guy who's the director of the opera, he
Mhm.
is driving and she flags him down. Now, here's the only thing that gets me. And his name is Marco. He's the director.
Mhm.
She's basically like her friend or boyfriend, whatever you want to call it, just got killed in front of her. So she's either one, so out of it that is just kind of like, oh wow, that really sucked, or two, totally traumatized because she was just kind of just. I mean, she did tell Marco she thinks that the killer may know her, and he's
Mhm.
basically trying to console her. Actually, goes back to her apartment with her and is
Mhm.
basically trying to calm her down and saying, hey, lock your door and all that type of stuff. but it's
Mhm.
I don't know, man, it just seemed like it was kind of like it was just so odd to me, like, not only her reaction, but how it
Really?
played out. Someone just got killed, and we're just
Yeah.
like, "Eh, hey, whatever." And the next day, here's Marco who's being, well, everyone's being questioned by the police, right? That
Mhm.
part does make sense. But it just see and again, here's the thing with Italian horror, and then I'll let you respond to what I'm saying here. With Italian horror, with a lot of Italian horror, you're watching it and it doesn't always play out, from A to Z the
Mhm.
way it makes sense. Like a lot of times it's about the feeling rather than the logic. And I understand that. I mean, you look at so many, even if you talk about Dario's movies, whether it's Tenebrae or Suspiria or Inferno or whatever. So I understand that, but it just seemed like this played so odd the way it was delivered in the film. What did you think?
Hmm. Uh, you know, I I don't know if I thought it was odd,
Okay.
you know, I was just I don't like try to think too deep with these movies because you can't. Because like you said, the story, it's like you're not quite sure. It's kind of everywhere.
Right, right, right.
So I just go with it, man. I don't try to like some movies I'm like, "Oh, trying," but I didn't really think I didn't the director of the play, I didn't really suspect him. You know,
Okay.
he
Yeah.
yeah, he might have played a red herring here and there, but
Yeah.
I didn't really yeah, it no. You
Okay.
know, I didn't suspect him at all.
All right. Well, I mean, but I'm not even just talking about that. I'm just saying the way that it came across. But that's just one part right here because, like I
Mhm.
said, everyone's being questioned by the inspector, Alan,
Yeah.
and
Well, the dude, what was he, like, a
they're
technical director? He was something, the dude that got killed. So,
yeah,
obviously, yeah, it
yeah,
made sense for them to be there questioning these
right, yeah,
people, you
absolutely,
know?
yeah.
So
Um, and so they're questioning everybody, and of course, Marco's just like, hey, I don't know what happened, and this and that, and we eventually get to our second big scene where you're gonna have the next attack, so to speak, go on. Now, this was interesting
mhm. This was a good one
because
too.
yeah, 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 I think this was a really good one too because this one the way it was shot again, and Dario's really good with this, but the way that it was shot was
Mhm,
really it's just unique. That's all I can say. You know what I mean?
mhm,
Um, so you've got Betty who's talking to one of the costume designers because her costume was found all messed up and slashed, and also the ravens. That was that scene that you didn't like because the masked assailant was doing something with the costume, and the ravens were attacking him, and
yeah.
he actually killed a
Killed
couple
a
and so forth. It was
couple.
a little
It's like,
messed up.
what? It
Yeah.
was,
So
man.
you have this scene where you have Betty who's talking to the seamstress Julia, and they find a gold bracelet with an anniversary date, and that was kind of like this big, moment in the film. Like, what is the date? What does it mean? So
Mhm.
this is a scene where you didn't necessarily know what was going to happen, but sure as hell, when they're investigating, for whatever reason, the seamstress leaves the room because she says, "Well, let me find a
Magnifying
a
glass.
magnifying glass so I can try to figure out what is the date on this thing." So you are really
Mhm.
invested in figuring this out at the point, and of course, that's when the masked assailant, the killer,
Yeah.
grabs Betty again, and you've got this next scene where she's put in this glass case, so to speak. She's tied up
Yeah.
again. He puts those things, the needles on her eyes again. Now, I'm gonna say visually, this is all striking stuff.
Mhm.
It looks great. It's really cool. It's unique. Again, this is 1987. So to have these things be so striking visually is a real testament.
Yeah.
But here's
Oh,
my
jeez.
here's my issue with this scene, okay? So the
What?
seamstress comes back into the room. She sees
Mhm.
that Betty is tied up and she's got the bracelet. She saw the date on the bracelet and she wanted to tell Betty, "Hey, this is what I found." So she's attacked by the killer.
Mhm.
Well, the killer knocks the bracelet out of her hand. She goes to get the bracelet, and then it's like, okay, well, what are you doing? She runs, the killer throws this iron at her, so she goes onto the floor hurt because it hits her in the back,
Mhm.
and then maybe she was playing possum because then she hits the killer, over the head. The killer's on the ground, you see that in this image right here, and
Mhm.
instead of either finishing him or running to get Betty and get out of there, she says, "Okay, well, let me look who it is, see who it is."
Yeah.
And
She
we
pulled
don't
a
s
scream moment.
She did. Now, here's the thing, though. She pulls the mask off. We don't see who it is, but she says, I know you. I've seen you before." And sure as shit, he's not dead. Come on,
Mhm.
man. So he chokes her, and then this was a really graphic death scene actually because she's choking and then the bracelet goes into her mouth. So he uses
Mhm.
scissors to cut the bracelet out of her. Now, what did you think of this scene? This was pretty
Oh, yeah,
graphic.
this was yeah, I mean, he was, you know, cutting her open like a chicken, right?
Yes.
Getting rid of
Yes.
those bones and opening her up and pulling out yeah, when he pulled that bracelet out, obviously it belonged to him,
Mhm, mhm.
because they even knew that it belonged to the killer because
Right.
it didn't belong on the costume. She didn't use gold. So,
Yes. Good point.
yeah, it was a great scene and yeah, and you didn't see it, but you heard it, and that
Yes.
was worse than seeing it, so,
Yeah. As a kill,
yeah.
it definitely ramped up, over the Stefano, kill or, before this. This was definitely
Mm,
like, whoop, this definitely elevated because like you said, the way they shot it, the
mhm,
sound design, and I mean, you didn't see everything, but you you felt it. You
yeah,
felt it. So here
mhm,
but once again, this is where I'm going with this Coriander. So again, the killer undoes her binds and
yep,
she escapes. She goes back to her apartment. She runs into the inspector there, and he's
mhm,
basically like, "Hey, what happened? Were you attacked again?" Because remember, she didn't go to the police after the first kill. She was brought into the investigation, because they
mhm,
found the body. So now the inspector is a little uptight with her, saying, "Look, man, we got to figure out who the fuck the killer is. Did you just get attacked?" And she's like, "Yes, I did," because she's got the cuts and bruises on her wrist. So he says,
mhm,
"Look, you go up to your place. I'm gonna send one of our men up there to basically be a watch guard. Don't
yep,
let anyone else into your apartment." And then
yep.
so she goes upstairs, and
She told him his name, I can't remember his name, she's like, "Remember his name."
yes, yeah, he
Yeah,
gave her the name, and so she
yeah,
knew that if anyone comes to the door who isn't this person, don't let them in.
yeah,
So it's like, okay, uh, whatever. This person is supposed to keep a guard over her. So then someone
mhm,
does come to the door, Salvi or whatever the name was,
mhm,
and he's supposed to be the watch guard. Now, here's the thing: she does the eye drops because obviously her eyes are irritated. She couldn't blink, or when
yeah,
she did, it would cut into her, right? So I get it. So when she answers the door, she can't see very well. This whole
mhm,
movie is about vision and eyes. They focus on the raven's eyes so much in the
mhm,
film, the point of view, and all that. So I get it. Dario was doing some really cool shit throughout all of this. Okay. So the guy comes in, he's supposed to be the watch guard.
mhm,
Now, here's the thing. She also says, "Okay, well, let me get in touch with my agent." So that's Daria's role in this as Mira. She's
mhm,
basically her talent agent. She comes over, and obviously Betty's telling her the whole story and so forth, and talking about this. One of the guards are here to make sure that nothing happens. So then Mira, played by Daria, says, "Wait a minute. I just talked to him downstairs," and it's like, "Oh, here we go." So
yeah,
you already knew it was gonna happen. So this is the 3rd big scene, and I think this might be my favorite scene overall, and obviously part of that is because I'm obviously a huge fan of, Daria Nicolodi, but anyways, so the lights go off, and they're scared. They go into, like, the kitchen area, and Betty and Mira, they're basically like, "We need a weapon." They get a knife, and they're waiting. You could see the guy who was let into the apartment. You could never see his face, but he moved out, he's moving around and he's obviously the killer, right? Coriander, before I get to the big part that's about to happen, tragically, of course, what are you thinking about in this scene?
I mean, yeah, they were smart to go into a room that had a, like she said, it was a nice thick door, it had a lock,
Yes.
and kinda like a good peephole, so
Mhm.
when they were looking out, they could see that, okay, yeah, the inspector or whoever, supposedly the killer,
Mhm.
right, was in there and he left, and yeah, I mean, they were smart to do that, but not so much after, but
Right.
I'll let you take go with it,
Well,
so.
here's my thing. I really enjoyed this scene because you're trying to figure out what's going on, right? I mean, it's like so much stuff going on, and you're very disoriented. Again, vision is a big thing, um, in this movie, I think, and I think it's a really cool artistic choice with what Dario is trying to do. But here's my thing. This is where I get into it. They see that the killer is there and the door opens, and then they're thinking, okay, he left, right? So they come
Mhm,
out of the kitchen area, and Mira is looking through the peephole trying to see who's there. Now then you have some person that comes there and says, I am the watch guard, and
mhm,
she's like, let me see your credentials. He shows her the badge and all that, and she's like, well, anyone can do that. And he says, look, I have a police gun, it's right here. And she's like, let me
mhm,
see your face, I want to see your face again. And then this is probably one of the more iconic shots or scenes of the film, because he puts the gun right up to the peephole, and you can't see it that well in this image. I tried to do a quick freeze frame, but the bullet, the way it's shot, they show the bullet leaving the gun, going through the
mhm.
peephole, and then killing Mira, which I thought was like, no, don't kill Daria. I'm such a
Oh, yeah.
fan of I'm such a fan of her. You're killing Daria. What's up with that? But anyways, so she gets killed.
She pretty
So it's
much
like,
always dies. You should be
well,
used to that.
yeah, but this is like only halfway through the film, and she didn't even have. Yeah, I get it. This wasn't quote unquote her movie, but she didn't have as much of a presence in the movie as I was hoping that she would. But that's just me talking as a fan. So she gets killed, and then it's basically a situation where Betty is stuck in the apartment. She's got to figure a way to get out, and the most unlikely way is through the air conditioning ducts, because there's a little girl who's one of her neighbors that has been a fan of hers and her singing, and basically tells her this is a way to get out. So they go through this,
Yeah, and
air
she's been
conditioning
watching
ducts.
her,
Yes,
a
yes.
little creeper.
Yeah, kinda. I was like, what are we doing in
Yeah.
this movie, Dario? What's going on here?" So the little girl does save her. You have a little bit of a scene where the killer did try to go, he went through the duct as well to capture them, but he didn't know where they ended up. So there was a little bit of tension, cool tension in this scene because they're hiding right here. Um, so I thought it was a really cool scene. I thought it was a really cool scene. And this sends us pretty much into the final act, the final third of the movie, where now the killer has struck multiple times. Okay. And it seems as though each time it's a little bit more aggressive. So now the director is basically like, I know exactly how we can figure out who the killer is. And they're going to set up this whole thing of how to do it, and basically use Betty as bait, saying, okay, we
Mhm.
have to do our performance tonight. Don't worry, you'll be safe and all of that. So now before I get to that, let me just jump back to the chat because I know that it's been some interesting stuff these guys have been saying. Brandon was saying that's my issue with Giallo as a genre. They're well directed films, but the leaps of logic have me scrambling to keep up and wonder why they're praised. And I think there is, to me, there's truth to that. I think that it depends on the film because some films work really well, right? Even if you have that leap of logic, some films struggle a little bit more, and I think it just depends on how, maybe it's how much of a leap, right? um Dan saying she takes off the mask but didn't even show us, yeah, in the scene with the seamstress. Yep, yep, yep. Mary's in the chat. What's going on, Mary? Good to see you, hope you're doing
Hey.
well. Saying, hey Night, hey Coriander, you both always bring me so much joy. I will need to check this
Aw,
movie out sometime. Thank you both for
it's
always
good.
making me smile. Oh, well,
Yeah.
thank you, Mary.
Uh-huh.
We appreciate
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
very cool. Um, Dan was saying that the eye drops clouding her vision was a stretch for me. Okay, yeah.
Some eye
Now I would
drops do that though.
yeah, I was just about to say, now I will say that didn't bother me too much because
Mhm.
I have weird eyes, bro, and I hate eye drops. You will probably never see me use them unless it's absolutely necessary. And
Oh
when
God, are
I've
you
used
gonna be
them,
like Rachel, right? Where you have to
what do you
be
mean?
tied down and held down to get eye drops put in your eyes
What?
and friends.
Oh, stop. Anyways, but I'm just saying, when I've used them in the past, they definitely
Yeah.
mess up my vision for a while. Um, But anyways, Foreign Horror is in the chat. What's up, man? Good to see you. Saying hey night,
Hello.
4A chat. Thanks for doing another Argento,
Yeah.
sir. Well, thank you
Yeah.
for coming here. As usual, we're talking about a movie that not a lot of people know about, which it's tough. It's tough to do it, but we wanted to talk about this, and hopefully it
It's
will
a good
find
movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully it will find viewers. That's what we hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Let's see. Dan saying, "Who was more obsessed with eyeballs, Argento or Fulci?" You're right. Ah, it's true. Ginger Ninja, what's
One
going on?
oh,
Good to see you in the chat, man. Hope you're doing well.
hey.
What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say one thing that wasn't really touched upon either was those crows, right? When the killer was killed those crows have a memory where they can remember,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
So that plays a big part in the end. And
it
that's
does.
so smart, because yeah, I mean to use any type of animal and yeah, to use them in such a smart way, it's awesome,
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was I love the ending. But go ahead.
Well, so for this last third, so again, Marco has this plan with Betty saying, we got a plan to identify the killer.
Mhm.
And she takes the stage as Lady Macbeth, and during the performance you have this scene where the ravens, it looks pretty cool. It's crazy as shit, but it's pretty cool because as she's performing, this huge cage with the ravens comes
Yeah.
busting through the
Crashing
wall,
through.
and you've
Mhm.
got the wrangler of the ravens who kicks open the cage door. The ravens start flying out, and then you've
Well,
got
one
like,
did. You had
okay,
one, it
yeah,
was like the leader of the pack,
right.
and he was flying around and eyeing, and once he pretty much gave the signal of, "We're good to go, I got him."
Mhm.
Yeah, they attacked. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
So they're flying around, and this is like a 3-minute scene, man. It's crazy. It looks cool, and we got the music going and all that. It looks cool. I think it was a little drawn out, though. I'm just being honest. But he does find,
Wow.
and we don't see who it is at first. You see that lead raven go into the audience, and he's attacking someone. And like you said, he basically
Mhm.
sends a signal. He's like, "Let's get him, boys." So the ravens are attacking him, gouges out one of the eyes.
Eyes, yeah.
Yeah, it looked pretty cool in that scene,
Yeah.
but and there's that shot. I just wanted to give this shot to folks when he kicks open the cage for the
Yeah.
ravens to attack. It was crazy, and you saw even one of the guys, who was kinda like one of the publicists of the
Mhm.
opera, of the theater, and he kinda just starts shaking his head because I guess, and it makes sense, no one else knew about this plan except for
Yeah.
Marco, the Raven Wrangler, and, of course, Betty. So,
Mhm.
anyways, we find out we
Yeah.
find out that it is the inspector.
Inspector.
It
Yeah.
is Santini himself, and he attempts to shoot. He's shooting everyone. He evades the capture, and everyone
Yeah.
is running out of the theater. It's
And you
right,
see
like
the raven chewing on his eyeball,
yes, yeah, trying to
That was
swallow it and
great.
all that. It's crazy stuff. It's like wow. But guess what? For whatever reason, I'm going there again. For whatever reason, it's like, geez, man. Come on, man, you gotta run. You gotta get the hell out of there. That's how I'm feeling. And she ran into one of the back rooms, I guess what it was. And of course, he
Mhm.
captures her. He abducts her. Now
Mhm.
we get into another scene where, and you're thinking, okay, well, what is he gonna do? Now remember, one of his eyes have been gouged out, so he ties
Yep.
her up. And he's like, I don't want you to watch this time. So he actually blindfolds her, which of course is different than what we had seen in the other kills where he wanted her to watch. And he
Mhm.
basically explains that he loved her mother, and this is the whole reason for him um doing all this. He reveals he was
Mhm.
once the teenage lover of Betty's mother, and they
Mhm.
murdered young women at the mother's behest. Okay, but eventually he killed the mother because of the mother's demand. So in other words, he was a tool basically of Betty's
Mhm.
mother, and that's why he is fixated on Betty. So he blindfolds her, gives her the gun, and says, I want you to shoot me. After he pours gasoline all over the room, he's like, I don't want to be found, right?
Mhm.
And so he's telling her, move to the left, move to the right, and he's like, I want you to shoot me. So eventually he says, right there, he lights a match, throws the match on the ground, things start lighting up, and he says, shoot
Mhm.
me. She shoots him. You hear a thud on the floor, and the
Mhm.
room is filled with flames, right? She's locked in the room. Okay. And then she's trying to figure out how to get out of the room. She finds a key. The key
Mhm.
doesn't work. It breaks off. So eventually she's saved because you got Marco and the rest of the theater people who come into the
Yeah.
room. Now, here's what I'm thinking, man. Tell me, first of all, and I want you to respond to what I'm about to say, and then tell me what you thought about this scene with the
Mhm.
inspector. But I'm thinking, why did it take so long for those guys to come to her rescue? This theater can't be that big. She didn't run.
Well,
She didn't
well, it
run
is
very
kinda
far.
big.
Yeah, I
Well,
know. I'm just saying, come on,
who knows,
guys. Come
what
on.
room she was in, and
Well, okay.
I mean, I
But
kinda believe it. They could have been, like, in the back,
well,
and that's a
maybe.
big place,
Maybe.
so
But tell me what you thought of this scene, as far as what the inspector revealed, and having her tied up but blindfolded. What did you think of all of that?
I mean, yeah, of course, the mother, and he gets obsessed with her, right? Comparing her to her mother. And yeah, I mean, saying you're, the next best thing, and it was going to
Right.
be you. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. The reveal didn't bother me at all.
Okay.
It kind of reminds you of Scream a little bit,
Yeah,
you
it
know?
does. Yeah, it
Um,
does.
But, yeah, you see him all burnt up, and you think, you know, she finally did it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You see the body on the floor that's being
Yeah,
basically burnt
all
up, and you get, like I
crispy.
said,
Mhm.
yeah, and the people jumped in, and they're like, let's get her out of here, let's run to safety,
Yep,
and all of that. So
yep.
that's pretty cool. So then you have the ending, the true ending, where you have Marco and Betty. They're out, they're basically they've gotten away, and
Mhm,
so you're happy. They leave Rome. They go to Marco's house in the Swiss Alps.
mhm.
But then they
Yeah,
hear a television broadcast
yeah,
on the news, basically saying the man that was thought to have been burned alive was not Santini, but a
yeah,
mannequin.
yeah.
A mannequin. So then they show a flashback of what happened is when he was telling her, move to the left, move to the right, and then
Mhm.
shoot. He threw a mannequin on the floor into the fire that he had, when he lit the match. So then you got Marco, who at this point Betty had gone outside and was
Yeah.
kind of just enjoying the area and so forth. Then you have Marco that yells out of the window, "Run! He's still
Run!
alive. He's not
Yeah.
dead." So she's running, and
And
once
it's
again,
so funny because when I saw this scene, right, where I was like, "Wow, we're getting to, like, The Sound of Music," right?
yeah,
Because
right? It does look like the fucking Sound of Music. You're right. Now listen. Here's where I'm coming from with this. Now
oh,
again,
shit.
there's a lot of great stuff going on, guys, and I know it's 1987, but look, man, we gotta learn how to run. She's doing the horror movie run, and
Mm.
Santini is catching up to her. Now they've been running for about 8 years at this point, but
Oh, stop.
somehow Marco comes from the side and tackles Santini, and they're fighting and so forth. And of course, Santini stabs Marco, kills Marco right then and there. And then you've got Betty who says, you're right, you're right. I am like my mother. It's my fault. Yada yada yada. Let's leave this place. There's going to be cops that are gonna come. It's just basically she's pulling a swerve. I'm like, "What is going on? Are you freaking serious?" She's basically like, "We're cool now. Let's be together. Let me
Well,
fulfill my
she's
mother's
being smart.
destiny." She
Mhm.
was. Well, we haven't gotten to that yet, but you just said it. She basically was fooling him, and she hits him with a rock, knocks him on the ground, and then all of a sudden,
The
there are
whole
like
town came.
8 look, there's like 8,000 cops. What?
Well,
How
they knew
dare
he was on the
bro,
loose.
bro,
They
bro.
knew where he was going.
There is like 80 million cops that have came out of thin air. They transported from Rome to the Swiss Alps. No, I'm just
Yeah,
playing.
man.
But they capture him. They put the cuffs on him and all that. And what it was funny at the end. These two cops came up to Betty and they were basically like, how did you stop him from killing you? What did you do? And she's like, I just told him lies and I fooled him and blah blah. And that's pretty much the end of it. That's pretty much the end of it. She walks on, she's looking at the beautiful landscape, and she's talking about how she's very, separate from people. She loves nature, she loves flowers and the grass, and,
She
there's this
saved a little gecko and
yeah,
whatever
she
the hell it
saved the
is,
gecko. Yeah, yeah, she did.
and
Um,
hugged the ground, and
yeah,
the
yeah.
end.
Yeah, in the end, and there he and Philip, yeah, it was 80 million cops. It was literally 80 million. Um, and that was it. Now, again, this movie, and I think Dan
I
alluded
still
to
enjoyed
it
it.
earlier. Well, no, we haven't gotten to that yet. We haven't gotten to that. There was a lot of beautiful
Oh,
shots and a lot
there
of
was.
great symbolism. The kill scenes were
Mm,
really, really good. So
there were.
let let's just get to
The
the meat and potatoes.
music, it
So
was
let's
good.
let's get to the meat and potatoes of this. We got to score this sucker. And we've got our grading system. We've got 4 badges, meaning that we think the film is excellent. It's a much must watch for a horror fan, especially for a slasher fan. We've got 3 badges, meaning that we think it's good. We've got 2, meaning you could take it or leave it. It's so-so. And then of course we've got the dreaded 1 badge, which means we don't like the film at all. We think it's bad, aka student bodies, aka blood cult, aka good night, God bless, and aka don't go in the woods
Mm,
alone. So Coriander, what
yes.
is the grade? And you guys in the chat, let us know. What is the grade you want to give to Opera?
I'm gonna give it 3.
3. Solid
Yep,
3. All right, all right. You
indeed.
guys in the chat, let me know. Let us know what you want to give it. Now, I'm gonna tell you what, man. I'm really conflicted on this film. Now, I want to be full
What?
transparency as well. Well, let
Oh
me. Well,
man.
I haven't even given my score yet. Hold on. Now, we watch a lot of movies. We really do. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm literally watching movies almost every day in one way or another. Whether it's to prep for our episodes or videos or whatever. And there have been a couple times, even for Slasher Movie Club, that we talked about, um, sometimes when you first watch a movie, if you're not in the right frame of mind, sometimes a second watch is necessary and it can give you a whole new outlook on a film. And that has
Oh
happened to us a
no.
few times. So look, man,
You're giving it what, a
I'm
2?
I'm gonna give no, I'm gonna give
A
I'm I'm
1?
I'm, I'm gonna give this dark
What?
territory.
Are you fucking
This
kidding me?
this film pissed me
Dark
no, I'm
territory?
joking, I'm
No
joking, I'm joking, I'm
way.
joking, I'm
I was
joking,
about to
I'm
leave this
joking,
stream.
I'm
What?
joking. Listen, I'm gonna give
That's
it a 3.
bullshit.
I'm gonna
Alright.
give it a 3, but let me just say this. I'm gonna give it a 3 with the caveat of this is a low 3 because there were listen, and it could have been when I was watching it.
Oh my god.
It could have been when I was watching it because I had a lot of stuff going on, and I prefer to watch movies when I'm totally cued in, right? And I know I wasn't totally cued in the sense to maybe appreciate the finer things, but it is a good film as far
It
as its
is.
direction, the kill scenes, there was creativity and
The
so forth.
yeah, the
I
camera,
just
they had some good color.
I just felt as though some of there was some leaps of logic as far as Betty, and she didn't even react to Stefano dying or even Marco at the end. She went, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just like, well, it's just kind of odd. Some of the scenes where the ravens were flying around in the opera house, it was cool, because you had the
It was
POV,
part of the opera, though, dude.
but I thought it was a little drawn out, bro. Because I was like, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. So this
Oh,
is this
no,
is one of those
see,
movies. This is one of
well,
those
that's too
movies.
bad.
Well, I'm not saying it's a bad movie, I'm just saying there was
No,
some
I'm just saying
frustration.
that's too bad. Yeah.
There was some frustration for me, and I definitely wanna
Mhm.
give it a second watch to see if the needle moves one way or the other, you know what I mean? But it
Yeah.
was good. It was good in the sense that it was great kills, the setups and the visuals were really, really amazing, especially when she was
Like,
tied up and you had the needles.
yeah, and you gotta think some of his movies are, like, worse than this with trying to figure out what the hell if anything, this
Yeah,
movie is, like,
yeah,
very easy to follow.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
I
I
agree.
don't know. I'm surprised, honestly.
Well, I
Huh.
I gave it a 3 just like you, but I'm just saying there
Yeah.
was some
It seems
frustration
like
for
you
me.
shouldn't have, though.
Well,
Seems
I'm
like it
gonna
should
I'm
have
gonna
been a
be
little lower.
Imma be honest, and I wasn't gonna say this because I always get on you about this, but if there was a 2.5 badges, that's probably
Well
more what I
well,
would've given
there
it.
isn't.
But there isn't, right? There isn't. So look,
Yeah,
Dan says, "3 vengeful Raven badges for me." Okay.
right?
Brandon saying, "I have issues with it holding it from a 4, so I'll give it a 3." I agree with that. Philip saying, "I haven't seen it, so I can't give it a score. I'm still trying to understand why 80 billion cops came to stop him." I know. I know. Brandon's calling me savage. Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm just it was just a little frustrating. Hey, what's up, Denisha? Good to see
Hey.
you. Dan saying I'd rate Deep
I mean, the
Red,
guy eluded the
Suspiria.
cops how many times? That's why they were all there. They wanted to catch
Bro,
this motherfucker.
bro.
What? I'm just
Come on,
saying.
man. Come on. Dan saying I'd rate Deep Red, Suspiria, and Tenebrae above this, but some really good parts. No, there's no doubt.
Oh,
I
yeah,
This is
yeah.
let me just say something, and that's one thing that was going through my mind, which I usually don't do that when we watch one particular director's filmography. I try not to compare movies because you can get into a whole different type of rabbit hole, right? I just want to watch a movie and enjoy it for what it is, or not enjoy it. But I can't lie, man, as I was watching it, I was thinking about how the storylines, like in Tenebrae or even Deep Red, they were tighter. Like, I enjoyed those storylines better because they flowed better. Like, this one, like I said, there were moments
Hmm.
where I was kinda like, What? What's going on? What's going on?" That being said, I do wanna give it a second watch because there were beautiful things in this film. Just like you said, Dan, some really good parts. Brandon also agreeing. So I'm not saying this is a bad movie whatsoever. I'm just saying there was some frustration with it, but again, it could also be, based upon my viewing, experience, as far as the time I did it and so forth. So,
Hmm.
interesting film, though. This is Look, let me just say something too, guys. And for you guys that are around with us all the time, which we truly appreciate, like Dan, we had a legendary run on Slasher Movie Club as far as watching a lot of films that were very good in a row.
Yeah.
I
What
don't
are
know
you
how you feel.
saying?
Well, I'm just saying, look, by my grading, you should know what I'm saying. I'm just saying that
Dude,
this
you gave it
film,
a 3. Come
I gave it
on.
look, I gave it a low 3. This is a
Eat
low.
whatever.
This is low. No, but no, but
Whatever.
seriously, I wanna watch this again. We should watch this again so I can also see your reactions in real time, Coriander, but it's not a bad film. It's not a bad film, but
It really isn't. I
I
mean,
can
I
say.
enjoyed it. Not that, I don't know if that says anything, but
Well, actually, it does because I was really
man, I
curious
don't
to
know.
see what you were gonna say because I know you're a huge Dario fan, but, we've watched some films where you kind of were like, it's okay." So I wanted to see if the
Yeah.
frustrations I
No,
had with this
no, I enjoyed
if
it. I
you
like the birds, like I
Mhm,
said, the music,
mhm,
I enjoyed it all, really.
yeah. Alright.
Yeah.
Well, hey, that's very, very
So,
cool. So,
yeah.
for you guys, in the chat. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. This was definitely an interesting one, and we'll
Let
see.
me let
We'll
me
s-
just say, like,
Go ahead.
that the ending, right? They should
Hmm.
have just left it the way, in my opinion, once he supposedly burnt and that was it. That's
Okay.
probably where they should have ended it instead of continue it on, the way they did. And
Hmm.
that was like a little, maybe a little off-putting, but
Yeah.
I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Well, I do think the ending in the Swiss Alps, it was a little tacked on. Like, I don't think it really added too much. I mean,
I
it was
know, I wanted to
beautiful.
sing the Griswold song.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I agree with you. I think that was tacked on. They should have just stopped at the fire
Yeah,
and, maybe a quick little stinger and that was it. Make us think, is he
yeah,
alive or is he not?
yeah.
That's what I thought they were gonna do. And then when I saw them, in the Swiss Alps, um, chilling and stuff, I was just kind of like, well, what are we, what are we doing here, bro? Like, are we training for Rocky? What? Come
Oh,
on. So, bro,
oh man.
it's true. So, anyways, but for you guys here,
Mhm.
this was fun to talk
It's
about.
still a good movie though.
It is. It is. It is. It really is. But frustrating for me. But I want to watch it again to absorb it. Paula, thank you for being here as well. I really
Yeah,
appreciate you. Brandon saying, it's a slasher. The surprise I'm not dead isn't all that surprising. Very true. Very true. Philip, thank you as well. And Dan
yeah,
saying Dario wanted a little vacay in the Alps. Right?
yeah.
Exactly. It's like,
It was
what's going
beautiful.
on? It was beautiful, but
Yeah.
unnecessary. So that's all we've got. An interesting movie nonetheless. So, guys, we will catch you guys tomorrow night. We hope you guys join us for a really, really fun matchup on Battle World. We're going to be talking Wes Craven versus Wes Craven, New Nightmare versus Scream 2. And man,
Mm,
I have no clue which way this is going to go, and especially with the live chat. So, we hope you guys will join us tomorrow night, and we will
yeah.
catch you guys later. So, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.
Upchurch.